And so now, as the great Bruce Buffer says, it's time.
And Bruce just got actually a big monologue, not a monologue, a big highlight reel of his years of service. I guess he's been doing it 30 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. We got 15 minutes with him years ago, me and Tony. We got, he butchered my name, but we got our names pronounced like we were actually going to fight.
Yeah, and then, but he wouldn't let us, like, what was it? He wouldn't let us rebroadcast it or something, or?
Yeah, we could only use it on that one.
Right.
Broadcast. And I don't even think I have that broadcast anymore, unfortunately. But I did ask him one difficult question that I thought he might push back on about the Fertitas and how they treated him. And he said something like, as long as you're loyal to them, they're loyal to you. It's like, whoa.
I'd like to ask him where he gets those coats at, that sport coats, where he gets his outfit.
And then one question I'll never forget is I asked him what was the hardest name he ever had to pronounce. And he kind of threw us for a loop. He said it was John Fitch. I was like, what? Yeah, I thought it'd be some Hispanic name or something like that, a Japanese name. John Fitch, because he said you can't put any emphasis behind it. It's too short.
Yeah, good. Fitch.
All right. I guess so. Anyway, we've got UFC to recap, UFC to preview. We've got some boxing matches to recap. Last week we did not have any Zuffa boxing, so the Golden Boy came out of the woodwork and put on a great show. Ryan Garcia looked nothing like I thought he would look, or looked last Saturday. Looked nothing like I thought he would look. He was crisp, polished, disciplined, and he beat the brakes off of Mario Barrios.
Did exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah, and he was best friends with the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, at the post-fight press conference, too. Sang his praises. And I don't know if he was...
His former trainer, Dan Goosen, he was pretty friendly with him, too.
Yeah. I don't know if Oscar... He kind of looked like he was a little too excited and happy to be there and to see what happened. Maybe it was just the money that the whole thing generated. But he was like in a different world. His eyes were like wicked wide open. And, he definitely looked like he maybe had done some illicit drugs beforehand. Anyway, so he's not really feeling the crunch of Zuffa Boxing, but I do notice that a lot of people are getting pissed in the marketplace. And the more I watch what's happening with Zuffa Boxing, the more I realize that it's going to come up out of nowhere. And it's not going to fail. It's not, I mean, as much as I would love to see it fail, it's not going to happen. It's very well put together. I think the worst thing that could happen with Zuffa Boxing is what is kind of already happening with this Connor Benn signing, because they just signed Connor Benn and heavyweight Andy Ruiz, two of their most notable recent signings. And Connor Benn apparently got like $15 million offered for one fight. And he's basically gotten stolen away from Matchroom. So, of course, Eddie Hearn is pissed off. But this is really getting under the skin of UFC fighters already. And I thought the big problem would be UFC fighters wanting to box and being told no, because it was going to be more money. But I did not expect just some of these fighters being signed for big money to start ruffling feathers like this early. So that kind of been going around making waves.
Well, where do you see this ending, though, Rich? Because you said you'd like to see it fail. If it succeeds, what do you see a couple years down the road?
Oh, I just see that a lot of these promoters are going to go out of business because they can't compete.
So in other words, it would turn into a monopoly like the UFC has done for MMA.
Right.
You think that could happen?
I think if it gets big enough and the Sheik feels like it's working, he might even buy Top Rank, because as we know, Top Rank has been advertised as up for sale for years. Bob Arum is ancient, and they don't have their ESPN deal anymore. So who knows? I mean, he might just acquire something else to really build it up. But Dana White really can't fail under the design of the whole thing, because all he has to do is worry about production. He's being given all this money from Paramount, from the Sheik, and he doesn't really have to invest any of the TKO company's money. It's all other people's money, as they call it, OPM. But anyway, yeah, so they are going to have a big fight coming up, I think this weekend, maybe Sunday again. Not sure the exact day, but we'll look at the schedule. And that's where Jai Opatai is going to debut. He's one of their most talented signings so far. We also have two other big fight announcements in the boxing arena. Mayweather versus Pacquiao 2. We figured out why Mayweather is fighting Tyson, and then Manny is fighting a tune-up guy.
Oh, boy.
2 years off the bench. Because Mayweather, Pacquiao 2, and I meant to send you guys the picture that's going around Facebook of them looking ancient, probably an AI creation, but it's like two old guys fighting in the fight poster. But they're already saying summer of this year it's going to happen, but I don't know. They haven't really set the date yet. But it's going to be in Las Vegas, and it looks like it's happening. 20 years too late.
So now the question is, what will the fan interest be? Off the charts because of the names, or just?
Oh yeah. I think.
You think? I mean, that Tyson Jake Paul fight brought a lot of interest last year, and then the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua fight because of Jake Paul. If it was just Anthony Joshua and just say somebody else outside of the Great Britain, probably not as much. It was the Jake Paul factor that sold it. So now it's Mayweather Pacquiao again. I remember like when they were first talking about it back in 2009 when Pacquiao was really ascending after he destroyed like De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton and a few other guys, and Mayweather was still Mayweather. That was the marquee fight, and then it started. Losing luster, but then it happened. And I remember that morning, which was now going to be 11 years now, that morning I was at the one gym, just a regular LA Fitness gym, and people were just talking about it. What do you think's going to happen? And I felt like I was holding court because they were coming up to me like this expert. I felt like I was holding court, and it was so exciting. I remember when the fight was over, I said I was so disappointed. And part of it, the fight was a letdown. Yeah, that's true. But the other part that I was disappointed about was it's like Christmas morning and you open up like all your gifts and they weren't what you wanted. But then it was like that was part of the disappointment. But then the other disappointment was it was over. That anticipation was over.
Yeah.
And
I know where you're coming from, bud. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's going to depend on who's on the undercard, because they're going to have to put a whole card together. But it's going to be at the Sphere, I hear.
Really?
So, yeah, I think that's going to be the first boxing match there.
That'd be pretty cool. I want to check that place out so bad.
Yeah, good luck getting tickets.
I'll go tickets on the Tornado.
They're bringing another one to the East Coast. I forget where I read it was going, but I think it's D.C. or New York, somewhere.
That's pretty cool. Probably New York.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you what was cool. And, obviously we never got to schedule it because of, everything, going on with my dad's issues and all that. But they were showing the movie The Wizard of Oz out there. And people always ask me, do you like The Wizard of Oz? I said, I do. And then I asked people, what are the 3 coolest things about The Wizard of Oz? And I'll ask you guys that question. What are the 3 coolest things about The Wizard of Oz?
The monkeys.
That's one.
I know you love monkeys, so I knew that.
Yeah, that flying monkey stuff. I love those things. I'd go out there. I'd own them.
Yeah. Flying monkeys. The Wicked Witch of the West.
No, please.
The Tin Man.
No, he had no heart. Tom, you want to venture any guesses?
The Yellow Brick Road.
I confess to total ignorance on that topic.
Okay, well, I'll
I've
tell
never
you
really
right
watched the whole thing.
The three things are obviously the flying monkeys, and then the munchkins because they're like midgets, and we know I like those too, and the tornado. God,
Oh, the tornado. Yeah.
That's what I was joking the other year because my level of sarcasm was off the charts. I said at one time I said it was a bad rash of storms, and I've put this on Facebook a few times. Bad rash of storms. I said, well, if I see a tornado, I'm driving. If I see a funnel cloud, I'm driving right into it. Someone's like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, 2 things. Either one, I go out in the most epic way possible, or number 2, there really is a land like Oz, and I land there. I said, let's take a look at this. First of all, I would be the best looking guy there. I mean, let's look at my competition. We got a scarecrow. He's got no brains. I mean, with the brains, we're at least I got one. It's a little damaged, but at least I got one. Well, we know I got heart. So the Tin Man, he's done. Cowardly Lion, he's got no courage. We know I got courage. The Wizard, he's a sniveling weasel. And everybody else, I'm head and shoulders above. Literally, I said I'd be the cat's meow there. And then told me you're an ass. Then the other time I wanted to do a family Wizard of Oz costume. Nobody wanted to do it but me. Vinny was still alive back then. I told my one cousin, I said, you get to be Dorothy. She's like, okay. I said, Vinny's Toto. She goes, I got the exact kind of dog Toto is. I said, overruled, Vinny's Toto. I said, my 2 aunts are the bad witches. I was busting my mom's stones too. I was like, my dad and my 2 uncles are the Tin Man, Scarecrow, Cowardly Lion. My other cousin, he's the wizard. My other cousin, she's the good witch. I said, that's a stretch. I said, my one cousin that I always torment, I said, her and my mom, and they can be the flying monkeys. The little nieces and nephews can be the munchkins. And somebody goes, well, what are you going to be? I said, isn't it obvious? I'm the tornado.
Okay, guys, I'm going to hit my meeting. I will be back.
Okay.
All right. Another boxing match I want to mention that's been set up. Cris Cyborg, the MMA fighter, has put out the challenge to Claressa Shields, who's coming off a big heavyweight victory there. I don't know what the weight is going to be, but I think Cyborg's going to have to gain some weight for once. I will never forget when we talk about Claressa's weight, how they ripped her up for her weigh-in picture where they compared her ass to a leather ottoman. A cracked leather ottoman. Oh, this is bad. But anyway, that's going to be entertaining, I think. I think Shields beats the brakes off her, but Cyborg has done a little bit of boxing. She's not really like a complete stranger to boxing. But I think it's way more effective in MMA than it would be against a world champion like Shields. So it's probably going to be an early knockout. Anyway, so that's that. I don't know. That's May, I guess, because that's when the Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano fight is. It's going to be on the Jake Paul undercard there for that. Anyway, we have some boxing to talk about. I'll start with some results. Of course, they're giving me, all right, results from tonight already. Yeah, because it's tomorrow. No, it's yesterday over there. The Thursday is yesterday. Marco Romeo, 10-round welterweight fight. Came in at 8-1. Now he's 9-1 because he won by an 8th round knockout in a fight against Jason Malia, who was undefeated, 10-0. And that was for the Australian welterweight title. Also had a female fight on the card, and it was a rare TKO early in that one, where Charnel Dargan came in at 10-2-2. She got the knockout in the second round over Shannon Connell, who came in at 26-8-1. Crazy record for a female. That was a bantamweight match. We had a bunch of amateur fights. The early week, a lot of amateur fights. And on Sunday was when we had Claressa Shields fighting. Claressa remained undefeated. She is 18-0 now. She did not get the knockout, but boy, she was. I did see a little bit of the highlights. She was putting in work. She was really not friendly with Franchon Cruz to serve. They did not like each other going in. And there was actually a brawl at the weigh-in. I don't know if you saw the footage of that, but they didn't fight.
I heard about that. Yeah, I saw that. That, another black eye.
Yeah.
I've never met Claressa Shields, but from all indications, she is not a very likable person.
Yeah, I mean, they put the movie out about her and it bombed.
Yeah,
it bombed worse than Christy Martin's movie.
I actually would like to see Christy Martin's movie. I mean,
yeah.
I
think they just didn't handle it that well. All the stuff that happened to her, we interviewed her, and it was very emotional. So I don't know how they couldn't make a movie that people wouldn't have been impressed by, except for, if they just screwed up the timing and the depiction of everything. Like, John Scully is always talking about, well, not so much anymore since he started working with women, but he used to say, I don't want to see a woman get punched in the face. But yeah, I think that might have been part of it. Like Sean Strickland was saying in his little clip about not wanting to watch women's MMA and all that stuff. And it's not good. But I think with Claressa,
I have that same feeling about her.
Yeah.
That she just, I don't dislike her, I don't know her or anything, but she doesn't
she's very
seem,
cocky.
Yeah.
So, there was one time when Ronda Rousey said she could probably beat Floyd Mayweather, and she got a rash hit for it. But Claressa has been saying that she could beat a man in a boxing match for years, and she's never shut up about it. Like, she's never stopped talking about it. I think she even almost challenged Keith Thurman one time to a boxing match. Thought she could beat him. But yeah, she's calls herself the greatest woman of all time. And,
Well,
she's got great accolades in the sport. Don't get me wrong; she's an awesome fighter. But I don't think people really like that. I don't think
well,
that's.
and then calling out men. She knows no one can accept that. That's a no-win proposition for any man.
Yeah, it's not like the battle of the sexes in tennis. That was a different story. This one.
Well,
Somebody's going to end up hurt, and then the guy's going to look like the asshole if he's the one that hurts the woman. So it's a lose-lose situation. But yeah, Claressa will get her chance to fight a man when she goes up against Cyborg.
I wonder if that'll ever happen. You think that will ever happen?
It's gonna. It's already been.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's already been set up. You missed it. We were talking about it 5 minutes ago. It's going to be on the Rousey versus Gina Carano undercard.
So we're going to have boxing and MMA on the same card. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it's going to be a ring like the old Pride fighting in the ring. That would be kind of crazy. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, to all the guys I've talked to that have done MMA in a ring, I said it's very different. It's a whole
Yeah.
different, in a lot of little subtle ways.
Yeah, especially if you fall out of it.
Well, I would think it would have to be at a ring because cage boxing never really took off. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, we had that guy on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Never heard from him again. Definitely didn't take off. All right. So Saturday, we're going over the results before we go into that discussion. Saturday, we had some fights as well. Jurgen Doberstein, 33-5-1, lost by 6-round knockout to Pierre, who improved to 25-2-1. That was for the Global Boxing Council World Super Middleweight title. And then we had a majority decision win for Yevgenis Alexejevs, who is 20-0 now, won by MD against Damiano Falcinelli. And he was 17-2-2 going in, so he's 17-3-2 now. And the IBF European middleweight title goes to Alexejevs. Definitely not pronouncing that right. I just got a feeling. Then we had a 10-round super bantamweight fight down in Sonora, Mexico. I don't know if there was any violence there, but boy, I don't know if you guys have seen that on TV lately.
Yeah.
You kill one drug lord and shit hits the fan down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jose Ramirez Maciel, 23-2, won a unanimous decision over Luis Rodriguez Ocana, falls to 15-3. Maciel gets his 24th win there. Some amateur fights over across the pond in Nottingham. We had Lee Wood notching another win. He is 29-4 now, beating Josh Warrington, who had a little bit more experience. He came in at 32-4-1, just took his 5th loss there. Unanimous decision. Another majority decision in the co-main event there for a couple local titles. Ishmael Davis falls to 15-4, getting the nod. Not getting the nod from the judges because it went to Bilal Fawaz, who improves to 11-1-1. And yeah, then another female fight for the WBC World Super Lightweight title. Sandy Ryan got the win there. Improves to 9-3-1, beating Carla Ramos Zamora. Falls to 12-11-2. She's one loss away from being 500. And then Maryland, we had the new Ray Robinson, right, Tony?
Yep.
He lost the unanimous decision to Michael Fox with a K, Mykal. Michael Fox, 26-5 is his record now. 26-4-2 is Robinson's. That was for the UBO Continental Super Welterweight title. And then we go to Vegas, where Golden Boy had his big night. And Gary Antoine Russell, I did watch a little bit of his fight. I had some money on it. Unfortunately, I also picked Barrios parlay. But yeah, Gary Antoine Russell got his unanimous decision. Although a lot of people said Andy Hiroka, his opponent, who was undefeated at 24-0 going in, showed a lot of heart and was really scrappy in that fight. But Gary just did enough to make the judges happy and got his 19th win. Go with his one loss, and that was a pretty decent performance on his part. But then Barrios looking for win number 30. He found loss number 3, and he's also got 2 draws. Ryan Garcia came in at 24-2, and he got 25 in the win column with some real good ring generalship, really. And I think he knocked Barrios down early too.
Yeah, it was like 18 seconds in or like something like that.
Yeah. So he kind of set the pace pretty quickly. I watched the live odds go skyrocketing after the first few rounds. It was like plus 900 after 2 rounds, and then plus 1800. It just kept going up. So yeah.
Well, Brian called out Shakur after the fight.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know if that'll happen.
Yeah, that's pretty risky for him. But I mean, one thing about Ryan Garcia, although he's way more talented than this guy, Sean O'Malley, he has that same kind of self-belief that O'Malley had going into the fight with for the title there in Boston. Back before he lost to Dvalishvili a couple times. He was just so convinced that he was the greatest ever. And Ryan has that kind of mentality, but he's actually got the talent to back it up. And he was working. He's really working at it. Like I saw a clip that was going around of him just watching TV, but he's got a bucket of rice. And he's doing that thing where you make the fist and you're working your wrist muscles. And I mean, part of it is probably therapy because he just had surgery not too long ago. But I mean, the guy is obviously not drinking and drugging like he used to. He seems focused. He was very relaxed in the dressing room. He had like a band playing while he was having his hand wraps. I don't know if you guys saw that clip, but I saw a little bit of it. It was going around, and I was like, wow, he's just singing songs. He's about to fight.
Yeah, he made the comment that he really cleaned up his lifestyle because he always thought he could out-train a bad lifestyle. And he was even saying, he said he'd get in training for a couple of months, but it didn't undo all the other stuff. So pretty smart move. Paid off.
Yeah. And I think he really likes to win. Not that anybody
No, I hope so. He
doesn't like
better. He doesn't. He's in the wrong business.
Yeah. And it seems like, the fight with Romero, he hurt himself in the middle of it. So that's probably had a big effect on his game there. So I think he could go places. He's got the skills. He's got the speed more than anything. And he has that rare mix of speed and power that so few boxers have. But it's really the confidence, I think, that takes him over the top because he feels invincible when he goes out there in top shape.
So what's next for him, you think?
I don't know.
Maybe a rematch with Haney?
Oscar will probably have him fight he'll make Dana White give up the best fighter he has at that weight and make him fight for the Zuffa title. Take it away from them. I don't know. There's plenty of people he could go up against next. But welterweight's a tough division. There's a lot of people at the top that he would do well against. But I'm excited. I like what he did in there. So we'll see. Then we had a draw at heavyweight. Frank Martin and it's super lightweight. Frank Martin. I think, who am I thinking of at heavyweight?
You are thinking of Frank Sanchez, probably. Not Frank Sanchez. Oh shit! Now I'm. Yeah, now you got me drawing a blank.
Frank something.
Yeah, definitely Frank Martin, who's like Cuban or something.
And he's a heavyweight too?
Yeah, he's a heavyweight. But this guy, now I'm all thrown off.
Frank Martin doesn't sound like a Cuban name.
No,
Anyway.
there's one guy, he's like a Cuban fighter, and his name's like, it's like Frank, and it's like such like a common like American name, and I'm like,
Yeah.
But not
Anyway,
Frank Sanchez, huh?
This Frank Martin took his first draw, 19-1-1 now instead of getting win number 20.
yeah, I said Frank Martin. That was a mistake, obviously. So now I got to look up this other guy.
And I think you're right. I think it might be Frank Sanchez. Anyway, now here Albright was his opponent in the 10-rounder. Went to a draw. Albright came in at 17-2. Now he's 17-2-1 at super lightweight. And then we had Experience did not win the day in this other fight at super middleweight. Sina Egbeko was looking for win number 30. He got loss number 5. And he got beat by Bektamir Melikuziev, who came in at just 16-1. Now he's 17-1 with another knockout because he knocked him out in the 7th round there.
It is Frank Sanchez, by the way.
Yeah. I kind of had the feeling as soon as you said that name. So that's our results. Let's tap into the schedule here. I guess we'll find out what's going on with Zuffa Boxing this week. I think this week is when Jai Opatai debuts. Tomorrow night, we have a decent one up in Canada. If you want to hop over the border for a boxing match there. Bradley Wilcox, 14-0, fighting Mark Smither, 14-2 at welterweight. And no title on the line there. Also in Arlington, Texas, we got Ruben Eduardo Aguiar, 23-0-1, fighting Luis Lopez, 16-2-4, also at welterweight. We got a lightweight fight in Argentina. Claudio Gabriel Denef, 24-4-1, facing Nahuel Alexander Espindola. That's 11-0 for an Argentinian lightweight title. Showing me too much for title fights here. Okay, that's the Philippine fight over in the Philippines. We got Arvin John Pasiones, who's 12-0, fighting Nathaniel Dorona, who's 9-0, for the Philippine Games and Amusements Board Youth Flyweight title.
Right. Lots of
engraver
titles.
gets,
Lots of titles nowadays.
whoever has to engrave that belt got paid overtime, I think. Also, the WBO Oriental Flyweight title in Philippines. And on DAZN, we've got some stuff across the pond. Owen Cooper, 11-1, who's 14-0 at welterweight, which is the most popular weight this week so far for the big fights. Nothing great on the undercard there. I don't know. This one's a new one. I have never seen this belt. Argentina again. We got Lucas Ramon Arganaraz, who is 15-1, fighting Cuba Niang, who's 10-0 at welterweight, fighting for the WBC FECONSUR welterweight title, which is vacant. FECONSUR, and it's all capitalized. I don't know what the hell.
God. Imagine if the old timers would come back, like guys from 100 years ago. You know, how would you explain this to them?
Yeah. All right. So then we go to the big card here out in Glendale. I believe it's California. I don't know if could be Glendale, Arizona. But it's on DAZN on Saturday, and we got Emmanuel Navarrete looking for win number 40. He's 39-2-1, facing Eduardo Nunez, who will be looking for win number 30. He's 29-1 at super featherweight. And up for grabs, we got the IBF World Super Featherweight title and the WBO World Super Featherweight title. One thing I have noticed reading these titles the last few weeks, I'm not seeing like the silver titles anymore. I don't know if they've gotten rid of them or we just haven't popped across them, but yeah. Or the global titles. We got the Global Boxing Union, but I haven't seen like, WBC Global World Championship or anything. Okay, also on this Glendale card, we have Kamir Smalls, 16-0, fighting Abel Ramos, 28-6-3 at welterweight. No title on the line there. We got some obscure titles on the line between Augustin Ezequiel Quintana, 22-2-1 at super lightweight, and Emiliano Vargas, also 16-0. The NABF Junior Super Lightweight title and the WBO Latino Super Lightweight title. And then we've also just had a couple examples of a major belt, even though it's a Latino here, and then a junior belt. How do you get a major belt and a junior belt in the same fight?
I know.
It's weird. WBC Continental America's Super Bantamweight title. Also, is our somebody's O's got to go fight of the week there. Arturo Cardenas, 17-0-1, fighting Jordan Martinez, 16-0-0. You'd think that would be for some kind of Latino title. Nope. All right. And then finally, we got Trini Ochoa, 21-0, fighting Oscar Alvarez Guerrero, who is 14-2 at super lightweight. And we go down to Amazon Prime show. In the Turning Stone Resort and Casino, we got Elijah Pierce, 21-2, fighting Lorenzo Parra, 23-1-1 for the WBO International Featherweight title. We got international titles. We got junior titles. We've got Continental America's titles. Right. Then the next show that's of any notable worth mentioning, Montreal next Thursday night. Headlined by Stephen Butler, 37-5-1, and Ramadi Hosseini, 22-2-2. Super middleweight. We also have the WBC Continental America's Cruiserweight title being disputed between Lenar Perez, 15-0, and Isaac Chalemba, 27-10-3. And we got the Alamo in action.
Nice.
Yomar Alamo, 22-5-1 at super lightweight. For the WBC Continental America Super Lightweight title, he's fighting John Arobio, 16-0. And the Canadians love their Steve Claggett, so he is on the card as well. Looking for win number 40. He's 39-8-2, fighting Rashield Williams, who's 14-3. And that seems like a tune-up fight for a guy of Claggett's pedigree. So I think he'll get that win number 40, and that might be his retirement fight. Kind of seems like what they're setting him up for, even though he's way down on the card. Then we got Moreno Fendero, 13-0, fighting Sean McCallman, who's 17-1 for the WBC Continental America's super middleweight title. And that's it until next week when we talk about next Saturday. Let's see. Didn't have any big boxing news highlighted. Let's see what we have.
Did I see something the other day that like Mike Tyson had a health scare? Or was that like another one of those AI bullshits?
Well, sometimes you'll see things that happened like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I was working. I didn't have a chance to click on it, and or it would be like, "Oh my god!" like heartbreaking news from whatever, and it's like, and then you click on it, you read like 10 pages to see somebody has an ingrown toenail.
Yeah. Well, the ones that are most prevalent, I think, are the relatives of famous people who die, and they put the picture of the famous person up there, like they died. And then you have to read the whole story to figure out it was like their second cousin.
Yeah.
Anyway. Ooh, it was scripted. Boxing superstar makes massive Tyson Paul reveal with key gloves claim. Terrence Crawford, I guess, got beef with Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Mike Tyson had beef with that, but he talked about it. Let's see what else we got. Ronda Rousey releases training footage. Whoop-de-doo. Ooh. I remember talking about this a while back. Sean Merriman trying to start his own MMA company. And apparently that has resulted in some legal issues. Founded Lights Out Extreme Fighting in April of 2019. Wanted to build a brand. And the company used innovative AI technology to bring more advertising possibilities to their bouts. And signed a distribution rights deal with ESPN to broadcast in Latin American companies. And then on January 8th, everything changed. They announced that Applied Real Intelligence, which is described as a leading alternative investment firm and provider of growth capital to North American innovators, acquired a majority interest in the company. So they made some adjustments, put some different people in the board, in the chairman position, and as the chief executive officer. And then let's see what happened. I'm going to read further down. And Merriman got thrown out at that point, I guess. He said, this is unnecessary, and even as I'm speaking to you today, we're looking for a solution. We got the capabilities for a solution, but it's not an option. I get it. We got some signed paperwork that may allow them to do some things, but not this. It's just unfortunate. Every day, I'm just thinking about my team and staff and the fighters. So the issue between the two companies stemmed over a loan from the AI company. A lawsuit was filed against the company ARI and ARI Senior Secured Growth, which is obviously a loan holdings company or something. So I guess he secured an agreement to borrow $2.1 million in May of 2024 and missed 3 interest payments between October and December 2025, totaling approximately $50,000. Court filing said the loan was secured by company's assets, including intellectual property, but ARI didn't have management or ownership rights in Lights Out. Well, that's how they got a hold of Zions. A loan-to-own scheme, they called it. Titus, get their hands on Zions. So anyway, he's suing over it, apparently. But temporary restraining order was filed in federal court. That I'm hoping to pay the money back like we intended to do and move on and get started immediately. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not a person that wants to fight because fighting is time and money, and it also affects a lot of people. I've got staff that have had opportunities to go other places for more money, and they didn't because they believed in me. They believed in what I was building. It's just unfortunate that so many people are affected by this. Anyway, sounds complicated, but hopefully they get that all ironed out, fixed up. The UFC could always use some extra competition. Anyway, I just mentioned Terrence Crawford was asked recently about the blockbuster clash between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, and he flat out believes it was scripted. Let's see what he said about it. I think it was scripted. He told Joe Rogan, I ain't never seen Tyson biting his gloves, and it was talking all that he could not to hit him. It was taking all that he could not to hit him. It was just like, it's heartbreaking to see an icon go out like that.
You're right. I never remember him biting his gloves like that.
Yeah,
And it was
he
weird.
was telling the announcer who was interviewing him that he used to do that all the time, but I'd never
Yeah,
seen
I
it.
remember him saying that. Like, oh, I always do that. It's like, I don't remember ever seeing it. Maybe his hands were too fast back in the day.
Even basketball legend Magic Johnson weighed in, apparently. He said, I cut it off because I couldn't watch. I had to see Mike Tyson like this because I went to every Tyson fight. This fight tonight was not great for boxing. So Paul, when everybody came at Paul with the fake fight claims, he dismissed him. And he says, you don't realize my power, my jab, my speed, and my ability and footwork to get out of the way of those punches. Tyson also famously said he got paid to lose. So there's that. And at the time, Jake Paul was threatening to sue anybody that said his fights were fake. And do you think he sued Mike Tyson?
Yeah, right.
No. Another story going around is this UFC White House event could cost $60 million. And of course, they're not going to get the live gate because they're not selling tickets. It's invite only. And then, obviously, the Paramount deal is, over years. So I don't know if they're going to chip in anything extra for that to have the broadcast. And it's not going to be pay-per-view, so they're not going to make a ton of money on it. So, speaking of the White House, we're going to go over the full card later, but one of my best predictions from last week, we talked about it specifically, Euros Medic in his UFC fight did exactly what I said he was probably going to do and used his knockout skills to take his opponent out pretty quickly. It was actually a string of first-round knockouts. I wish I would have known somehow to pick all three of those in a row that ended in first-round knockouts because that would have been astronomical odds. You could have known that was going to happen. But anyway, so he finishes the guy, and then he gets on the mic, and he specifically asks Donald Trump to solve a travel issue for him, a visa issue. Because he's living in Alaska, but he's from like Romania or something. I don't know. I forget which country it is. But he's living in Alaska, and he wants to travel for a UFC event, and he's having issues with customs or something. So he asked Donald Trump to intervene with his 15 seconds of fame on the mic. And of course, he got back to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump fixed the issue like immediately. So, yeah, sometimes all you got to do is ask. So we'll see. All right, what else we got for boxing stuff? Whoa. Manny Pacquiao thinks Floyd Mayweather Jr. rematch will be different than 11 years ago. Well, no shit. Ooh, well, here's an interesting one. I'll have to read this later, but I got to share the headline at least. Frank Warren is embroiled in a potential $1 billion legal dispute with Saudi Arabia's SCLA. $1 billion. Maybe we'll talk about that next week once I read it. This is these guys from the MMA Draw, that podcast and Substack with Zach Arnold, the guy that used to write about me. Did a big story about this too that I've got queued up in my email and haven't read yet. So I'll have to look into that and do a little rant next week on that story. we got. That must have been the day the Manny Pacquiao fight got announced. Another thing I did with the AI program. I mean, I talked about this before the show started getting recorded here, but I've been doing this work with an AI company called Mercor, and I did a whole entire task of like 9 turns about the jab, my favorite punch in boxing. And I asked all kinds of questions about, knockouts, how many knockouts in major fights have come from the jab. Came up with a lot of great ones. And I actually did not know there was a big fight that ended in a jab to the body.
Really? What fight was that?
Let me bring it up on the Mercor task sheet here. The good thing about these, when you finish them, they don't just disappear into the ether. You actually have a record of them. So I can go in, like for my research on the book, I can go to that task that I did, and it's in the improved tasks area, and it'll give me the whole thing. I can just cut and paste to a document, print it out, and use it. Okay, so that's not the one. Let's go to this one. So I asked all these questions about the jab, and who do you think came up when I asked for examples in most of the questions about the jab?
Probably Ali.
Yeah, that's one of them. But the other one was
Larry Holmes.
Larry Holmes, Tom. Yeah. And then talk about glitches, about this thing throwing up factual and grammar errors that you can't find. This motherfucking quality check bullshit bot tries to tell me that Floyd Mayweather Jr. didn't have an up jab. Because I asked it to highlight a few boxers who used the up jab frequently and had exceptional careers. And it gave up Floyd Mayweather as one of them. And it says to me, the Mayweather example is the main weakness because it is harder to justify him as a frequent notable up jab specialist. So swapping him for a more widely cited example of a rising jab would strengthen alignment with the user's request. Yeah, that's bullshit. Where's the knockout? Oh, maybe I took that one out. Yeah, I think I took that one out. Another problem I had when I was doing it is they kept giving me, I asked for, examples of fights with that were won by jabs. And I wanted one female example. And they kept giving me a Cecilia Breakhouse fight against Jessica McCaskill that she actually lost. So I was like, whatever. And then I found another Breakhouse fight that she actually won. And I used that, and it said, "Oh no, she lost that fight too." And I was like, "Wait a second, no, she didn't." Yeah, but I ended up looking. I'll figure it out later. But maybe I'll just go right to the AI engine right now. But yeah, it was like a lot of Muhammad Ali with the quick jab and the up jab. And Larry Holmes was almost in every example of a good jab. I always like kind of wonder why everybody thinks Larry Holmes was so good, because I never saw him in his prime, you know. Whenever I think of Larry Holmes, I think of how he got wrecked by Mike Tyson. So it was kind of like one of those things. I'd always see his name pop up, and we had a chance to meet him when the Rocky ceremony thing happened, but we didn't end up going to the bar where he hung out, George's Cafe.
I remember him in his prime, for sure, and that jab was just so hard to deal with.
Well, let's see if ChatGPT can tell me which fight ended with a jab to the body from the winner. It was a title fight, I believe. Thinking. Let's think. Bernard Hopkins versus Oscar De La Hoya?
No, that was a left hook to the liver.
Bernard Hopkins landed a short, perfectly timed jab to the body. De La Hoya immediately took a knee and was counted out.
Yeah, that's the limitations of AI. That was not a jab.
I think that was the reason why I scrapped that question, was because it was giving me a couple of examples of fights where the jab started the damage, but it didn't end the fight. It was another punch after the jab. Mikey Garcia versus Roman Rocky Martinez, 2014. And Roy Jones Jr. versus Virgil Hill, 1998.
That was a right hand that broke his ribs, but it definitely wasn't a jab.
Okay. We need to get.
We are hard to fool.
We need to get the Rain Man of boxing to do this corrective work on these AI.
Yeah, well, we should volunteer. We could do it.
Gennady Golovkin versus Matthew Macklin, 2013. Golovkin ended.
I remember that fight. I think it ended in like the 11th round. I don't remember the knockout.
Yeah, it was a lot of punches. I don't know if a jab started it, because I remember that.
Terrence Crawford versus Julius Ndongo, 2017. Crawford ended the fight with a straight leg left to the body. Was he southpaw?
Macklin?
No, Crawford.
Crawford. Well, you never know what.
Yeah, he was.
Yes, I don't know. I actually watched footage of the one that it named, so I do know it was a jab to the body, but I just can't think of the name right now. Anyway, we've got some UFC to talk about. Talk about boxing. So we had last week main event of Strickland versus Hernandez, and
oh boy,
man,
Tony, as a boxing aficionado, the show that Sean Strickland put out with just pure boxing, for the most part. I mean, his punches were right on track, economical, just and you know that the guy's got the edge when your opponent starts to get sloppy.
No, yeah.
And a good boxer, it's just everything just zoned in, nothing fancy, knowing when to pour it on. Just wow. What could you say?
Yeah, and I think the term that best describes my experience watching that card was recency bias, and that's what affected my betting. I had a bunch of bets that were parlays set up, and most of them got ruined because I picked Zachary Reese to beat Michel Pereira in the middle of the main card there, or the beginning of the main card. And I thought Zachary Reese won the fight, but they gave the split decision to Pereira, and I think he clearly won second and third round. Pereira Obviously, did a little bit more in the first, but yeah, he got robbed. But the real big one that affected me, I did use the regular DraftKings, and then also I used this thing called Fliff, FLIFF, and it actually will give you free money. You get on there every 2 hours, and it'll either give you 20 cents or a dollar, up to like $2.20 or something like that, and then you have to put in your own money. So usually I just do astronomical bets on that for like $2 a pop. But this time I got on there and I did a $5 bet on a parlay that had talk about monkeys. The Monkey King, Jordan Levitt. He actually won. He was the underdog, and I just threw a bunch of wild parlays together, and I fortunately had Jordan Levitt winning the fight. And there's not always a way that you can pick the method on Fliff, but I just picked the outcome money line. And the worst part about Fliff is you cannot cash out. It never gives you a cash out, even if all your bets are winning and going into the final fight. So I forget exactly who I had, but I had all winners going into the final fight. And of course, like last week, I said that I thought Anthony Hernandez just looked too good recently, and I thought he was going to take Strickland out of there. And as I was watching the first round, I was like, okay, Anthony can do this.
It was close. I had Sean slightly ahead, but it was close.
Yeah, I thought that he was getting hit a lot, but he was also connecting with his jab.
But you remember what I said about Sean keeping it on the feet? Remember that?
Right. And I thought maybe he could get him to the ground and submit him. He tried for a couple takedowns, didn't get him. But then I started noticing in the second round, he was getting hit more. It was bothering him. I think he had a bloody lip or something. And he was just getting frustrated because he couldn't string punches together. He couldn't land combinations.
And Sean's defense was flawless. And that jab.
His jab.
So I say that every week. That jab is so underused in MMA.
Yeah. And Strickland actually ended up hurting him at one point, and then he started with the dirty boxing. That's what finished it off in the third. He put Hernandez ducked down a little bit. He put his left hand on the back of the head and just started doing uppercuts to the face. It was crazy.
And a good knee to the body is what really.
Yeah. And so Hernandez done. He looked outclassed, and I kind of should have known. Just looking at Strickland's record, I kind of did have that feeling before the fight. Maybe I should put some more money on Strickland and some of these parlays, because he's only recently fought the best of the best in the division, and he's only had 5-round fights, and Anthony was coming into his very first real 5-round fight that had the potential to go the distance there.
Right. And Chill
and Strickland had a year off.
Talk about that it's a whole different ball game. You're the last guy, and you've got those extra 2 rounds. And I mean, it's the first time around for a 5-round fight. It's altogether different.
Yeah. I don't know. One thing I just don't like about Sean Strickland is he's not very dynamic. Obviously he looked at when he was going for the knockout, but most of that fight he was just throwing lefts and rights, just straight punches, and it gets boring. That's why he wins so many decisions, or he goes to decisions.
Well, then that's up to his opponent to get him out of that rhythm, right?
Right. Anyway, I will definitely not doubt him in the future. He looked great.
And did you see how focused he was?
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that acts like a maniac. But when it's fight night, he had that same focus when he was walking to the cage as he did in the Izzy fight. I mean, he was dialed in, he was in shape, and it showed. So this is going to be interesting now. Who gets the next title shot? Because you'd have to think that since he's beat him up, it should be Strickland on the 4th of July
Right.
at the White House. Or would they let cause not there, a terrorist? Huh? He's called in the
Yeah, that's what he
Chechen
wants.
whore.
That's what he
Did you
wants.
hear that? He says, "Oh, that Chechen whore."
Yeah.
So
Well, he got in a lot of trouble. The big controversy was at the post-fight press conference. They cut his mic because he was talking about Anthony Hernandez has a coach, I guess, who used to train Aspen Ladd when she was a teenager. I think she was 16 or something when they started training together. And then this guy, Jeff West, was the coach. He said something to some people about, I'm going to marry that girl or something like that. And they ended up getting together later on. So, I mean, there's a whole other side story with Pat Barry and Rose Namajunas. They are together now, but supposedly Pat Barry was trying to get with her when she was way too young, and that's what started their relationship. So this is kind of another sidelight of that kind of story, and I guess it's pretty prominent with, fight training. I actually just saw it on an episode of Scandal. I've been watching that show on Netflix, and this guy who's a psycho on it is trying to teach this girl how to do self-defense, and they end up falling in love. So it's a theme. It's believable. It happens. But anyway, Sean Strickland was talking about how it really pissed him off when he was fighting Anthony Hernandez, and he looked at his corner and he saw this guy and he thinks he's a piece of shit for what he did with Aspen Ladd. And they call it grooming, I guess. They talk about it a lot with the Epstein situation that's been making all the news, where he groomed certain people. But apparently this Jeff West guy was in the corner of Anthony Hernandez, and Sean looked up at him, and it really motivated him to beat the crap out of Anthony Hernandez, even though he was nothing but positive about Anthony himself. He was really saying that Anthony was a better man than he was after the fight. It was kind of funny. I expected a lot of F-bombs and stuff, but Sean actually had a really good post-fight speech.
So, I hadn't really I haven't followed I've been working too much, but I didn't know there was that drama about this West and Ladd. So was she of age? I mean, when they started dating? Do we know?
Well, I think she was like borderline. She might have been 15 or 16. But I don't know if any of the, romantic stuff started at that stage, or if that's just when Jeff West started training her, But I think it was more of the him saying that he wanted to marry her like almost immediately when they started training. But anyway, Strickland had his mic cut off and he kept talking. It was funny. So that was going around. The co-main event was the one where Euros Medic lived up to the billing I set up for him.
That was a knockout.
Oh, a face plant knockout, Tony. He hit him. I don't even know what he hit him with, but he hit him on the side of the freaking head, right on the temple.
One shot.
And,
got power.
Setting up for the fight, they were like, the favorite was Jeff Neal going in. And they were talking about how he gave up alcohol and he got sober and he was on track now. And then Euros Medic hit some
track was derailed.
Yeah,
and you heard the president got involved in this.
Yeah, I did mention that earlier. Euros Medic, let me just click on him just to get the country right. But he is training out of Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska. He hails from somewhere else.
Serbia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he's here on a visa. But this was his third first round knockout, and all of them were under a minute and a half. So I should have known just on that pattern alone. He did have one knockout loss too that broke up what would have been a 5-fight first round knockout streak. He only lasted 30 seconds against Punahele Soriano.
Well, his stock rises now because especially if it's either him or he's either going to get him or they're going to get him. It's going to be fireworks.
He gave a great post-fight speech about
Yeah.
knocking people out. It was awesome, very motivating. And he mentioned that he's having these travel issues. He wanted to fight on a certain card overseas, and he needed some help. And he literally name dropped Donald Trump. And next day, I read that his issue was solved.
Or I heard it was in the dressing room.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard again. I heard that somehow Dana White or someone or maybe Trump was watching or something. But I heard it was that quick. Not sure.
That's awesome.
But it's pretty cool that the president gets involved in that. That's the way it should be.
Well, yeah, he's got such history. He kind of saved the sport because he used to allow the fights to happen at the Trump casinos.
Yeah, UFC 32.
That's how I got to interview Trump, because of his involvement in MMA. He got tied into that Affliction fiasco. Affliction MMA. Funny stuff. Anyway, Melky Costa also coming through on my praise of him last week. I was very confident in picking him to beat Dan Ige. I didn't expect it to be a knockout that quick, though. I thought he might finish him late, but he ended up throwing a spinning back kick that connected to Ige's face. And there was just 4 seconds left in the round, and the ref stopped it. Ige protested quite a bit, but I mean, it was a shot. It was a bad one. And then heavyweight Sergey Spivak and Ante Delija. I don't know what the odds would have been if you picked that fight to go the distance, but it did. And I never would have expected it to get Sergey Spivak a win. I was all Ante Delija going into that one. So that was a surprise for me. Although I didn't have too much money on those parlays with him in it. But yeah, Spivak, the polar bear, got the win by decision. And I thought it was 3 fights in a row that ended in first round knockouts, but it was actually the Spivak one interrupted the streak. But Jacoby Smith took out this guy that came in on short notice, who had just had a major brain issue and had a major operation to fix it. And so he was out of the UFC for a while. He came back, and not only was he knocked out, he was out for quite a bit. So it makes you wonder, like, man, how does he decide after doing that operation and having that kind of brain difficulty to go right back out there and fight in a situation like this? Like,
well, yeah, you got to wonder if he'll be back, if he'll have medical clearance.
3 minutes and 1 second. He was in the fetal position, out cold. Bad night. Anyway, before that was the Michel Pereira versus Zachary Reese fight. Granted, it was a little bit close, but I thought Pereira looked awful for most of the fight. I think he's always been very poor at defending his face. You know, because he does all this hands down, spinning stuff, and mixing up the kicks and punches. I mean, he looked better than some of his last few fights, but he definitely, I don't think, won that fight, but he got the split decision on. And I did not actually see any of the fights before that, so I'm just going to kind of run through them. We had 3 straight unanimous decisions. Carlos Leal beating Chidi Njokuani. Alibi Idris beating Odie Osborne by UD. Alden Correa at flyweight beating Luis Gurul by unanimous decision. And a female fight earlier in the night, bantamweight in the 5th fight of the night, Jocelyn Edwards beat Nora Cornoli by a rear naked choke submission, 2 minutes and 44 seconds into the second round. And we had 4 straight decisions to start the card. Punahele Soriano in the fourth fight, beating Ramiz Rahamaj by UD. Jean-Paul Leboznoyani at welterweight, beating Philip Rowe by split decision. And the Monkey King, as I mentioned, Jordan Levitt, he won over Yadier Del Val, who I think was undefeated going in. Beat him by unanimous decision. And then Carly Judice, as predicted, she was like one of the biggest favorites on the card. She beat Juliana Miller by unanimous decision. I think the fight of the night belonged to Strickland or Euros Medique with that amazing knockout. Highlight reel knockout, really.
Well, you know, maybe they'll bring both of them to the July 4th card.
Yeah. Still no word on any kind of official matchups for that one, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. This weekend, we have a Mexico City fight card, and the main event is kind of puzzling to me. We got Brandon Moreno with all this experience in the world. He's 23-9-2, facing Lone'er Kavanagh, who is just 9-1. I don't know. It's not like boxing where the guy might have like 92 amateur fights or something. He's only recently got to the UFC too. He's only had 3 official UFC fights and lost his last one by knockout to Charles Johnson. Came into the Contender Series in August of 2024. He beat some Ho, Antoine Ho, by knockout in that performance. And he's had, 2 decision wins in the UFC. No huge names. So I don't know why they made this fight. I really don't. And I'm going to pick Moreno, probably by decision, but I wouldn't put it past him to get a submission of some kind. He's good at that. And then we have another fight, sort of on the same wavelength, experience versus youth. But this guy, David Martinez, is the youth in this one. He's 13-1. Got a little bit more experience. And 10 of those wins are knockouts. They call him the Black Spartan. And he has a win streak going back to 2021. But he's also very new to the UFC. He's only had 2 official UFC fights in the Dana White Contender Series. He's fighting Marlon Vera. We talked about Sean O'Malley earlier. Sean O'Malley really is the first one to expose him in a long time, other than Corey Sandhagen, who beat him by split decision. But Sean won a unanimous decision against him in March of 2024, and then that started a 3-fight losing streak for Vera. So this might be a, win and stay in type of fight for Vera, because the UFC has been cutting people like mad lately. So could be a do or die situation for Vera. I like him in this fight. I think this is the kind of guy he needs, somebody that's a little bit more green. And I think that, if 3 losses does anything to you, it tells you you need to rework your game. And then yet another fight of the same theme. The 11th fight of the night, we have Daniel Zellhuber, 15-3, and Bobby Green, 33-17-1. Bobby Green's record. But they don't call him King Green anymore.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Usually, Sherdog will even have him as King Green, but now they just have the King in quotation marks again. Because apparently he legally changed his name to King Green. So I don't know what happened, if he changed his name back or what. He is coming off a split decision win over Lance Gibson Jr. We had a couple rough first-round knockouts before that. Mauricio Huffy and Patty Pimblett did those to him. Actually, it was a knockout and a triangle choke. And then Jalen Turner knocked him out in the first round back in December 2023. Zellhuber is not so much of a knockout artist, but he is a slugger. He had a fight with Esteban Ribovics in September of 2024. that was absolute war. I mean, I don't know what the punch stat numbers were, but these guys slugged it out and just were like rock'em sock'em robots out there. But I just don't know. He's got a couple losses in a row. The Rebovic's one, he lost by split decision. He lost against Michael Johnson after that. I think Bobby Green does enough to win this fight. I don't think he's going to get knocked out in the first round by Zellhuber. Then we got Edgar Cherez, 12-6 at flyweight, fighting Felipe Bunez, who is 14-8. I don't really know much about either one of these guys. Can't remember a particular fight to highlight I've seen between the two, so probably just going to avoid that one. Imanol Rodriguez, 6-0 at flyweight, fighting Kevin Borjas, who is 10-4. Don't know a lot about those guys either. Santiago Luna, 7-0 at bantamweight, fighting Angel Pacheco, 7-3. I just always go with an undefeated fighter in those situations where guys have less than 10 fights or 10 exactly. I think Luna's going to take that money line. Ryan Gondra, 8-1, fighting Jose Medina, who's 11-6 at middleweight. One could go either way. Macy Chason, 10-5 against Aylin Perez at bantamweight, who's 12-2. I'm going to go with Perez there. I never liked how Macy Chason fights. She's got a really good build. You'd think, looking at her, she would beat any female in her division, but she goes out there and she shits the bed half the time. So I just can't put my money behind her anymore. And then we have Chris Mutino, 14-7 at bantamweight, fighting Christian Quinones, who is 18-5. Every time I see Mutino's name, down to the mind. One of our Guido fights of the week. Guido Canetti sent back down to the minors.
It's a great name.
Guido Canetti. So he's been in the Combat Zone circuit and CES, which I believe is in New England. And then he went to Cage Titans in his last fight, November of 2024. He cut back to the UFC for one fight, and he got knocked out in the first round by Malcolm Wellmaker in June of 2025. So he hasn't fought in almost a year, and he's facing Christian Quinones. This might be the easiest money of the night. Just put your money on Christian. Latino is not really that great a fighter, I don't think. Douglas Silva D'Andrade is going to be looking for win number 30, 29-6 at featherweight, fighting Javier Reyes, who is 22-5. And yeah, that's one I'm going to have to go with Reyes on, just a money line bet. Not Reyes, D'Andrade, because I'd like to see him get win number 30. I do think I remember one of his last fights was pretty decent too. I'm not going to make any predictions on these other ones. Well, maybe one. Third fight of the night, Regina Turin, 7-0, fighting Ernesta Caracate, who is 6-1-1. That's a 130-pound catchweight fight. And I have no clue who's going to win that one. I have to do further research. We do have a featherweight fight. I think I can predict a good winner there. Eric Silva, 9-3, fighting the Fire Marshal, Francis Marshall. And Francis is a heavy favorite going in. I do remember seeing him against Zupja. And I thought he beat Santos. I really did. So this is his chance to avenge his last, not really avenge his loss, but to make up for his loss here with another win. And then the first fight of the night, Damian Pinas, 8-1, fighting Wesley Schultz, 8-2. Pinas. You think that guy got made fun of as a kid? Damian Pinas. That's probably why he's got such a good record. 8-1. He's fighting Wes Schultz, who is 8-2. Didn't we have a guy, Wes something, on the show? It was one of our worst interviews ever, Tony.
Yeah, Wes Sims. It was like literally the first show I did with you. Literally the first.
He was horrible.
Oh, dude, he was terrible.
The only guy worse than him was Charles Felony something. It's his nickname. Crazy Horse. He used to be his nickname.
Oh, okay. Well, I met Wes Sims because he's an Ohio boy, and I talked to him some. Big goofus. Well, what was wrong with him as a guest?
He was just disrespectful, very short answers.
You know, it's like we got him on.
Full of himself.
Yeah, we got him on. He was that. We got him on. Like I said, it was literally my first time co-host, and I had been on as a guest a couple times. And Rich goes, "Hey, you want to be?" And I was like, "About 18 years now, because you figure I've been doing this since 08." And so we get on, and we do our thing. We get our guest on, and then he was like, "Is there a problem with this feed?" And he was like, hello. And he kept it up, and he was like, we would try to ask him a question, and he would say, it's like a stupid answer. Then he would, "Oh yeah, I'm going out with my girl tonight, and I'm going to do this with her." And we're like, we weren't talking about fights, dude, And yeah, he was definitely disrespectful, definitely, it was like very obnoxious. And I'm a person that's generally obnoxious. And when I call somebody obnoxious, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, he was time. I mean, I just met him at an event. We just talked some, but in that Frank Mir fight, well, they had two. Remember, and then the first one he got disqualified for.
Kicked him in the head or something.
Yeah, well, he stopped him, gave him a stomp kick when Mir was on the ground, and then in the rematch, he was doing so good. Mir had him down, and it looked like he was about to get submitted, but then Sims was being a smart aleck then though, because he raised his arm and he pointed at Mir and started giving him the finger. And so then they get to their feet, and I had one of the most embarrassing moments of my life because I'm with a big, bunch of guys, and hey, they say in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man's king, so I'm the expert here on this. And I said, okay, he's got a chance now. Frank has no stand-up. And then Mir unleashed a combination on him that knocked him F out. And I just wanted the floor to open up and swallow it. Oh, man, what a stupid thing. Say at the wrong time, But yeah, Sims was kind of colorful, but boy, it sounds like he turned into a real jerk. God.
Yeah. Well, at least he was with us. Ironically, I think we had Roy Nelson on the same show.
I remember that. I don't think it was the same show. But it was not far after. It was not far after.
Yeah, he was.
I probably enjoyed having him on. He was
fun. Roy seems he's pretty cool.
Anyway, so yeah, first fight of the night, we've got Wesley Schultz and Damian Pinas. But Wesley is a pretty tough guy. They call him Party Time. And came off the Dana White Contender Series with a loss. First time out, got TKO'd. Then he went back to the minor leagues in Michigan, got a guillotine choke in the first round, came back to the Contender Series, and ended up submitting Mario Mingaj in the first round, just short of 2 minutes. And he's a pretty tough guy. Going up against a guy who's got a shit ton of knockouts. Almost every single win except his third win into his 8-1 career was a knockout win, and almost all of those knockouts were in the first round. So going to be submission versus knockout with that one. His very first fight was in the second round. He knocked out his opponent, and then after his first loss, he got disqualified. So that's another reason you look at people's records, because you might think, oh, he's capable of losing because he's got one loss, but then you find out it was a disqualification, kind of like John Jones. His only loss was by disqualification. So I don't know. Wesley's got his work cut out for him in this one, but Schultz has been on the Contender Series twice. Damian just had to go on one time, and he won in 1 minute and 46 seconds in his Dana White series. But yeah, anything can happen. Anyway, that's it for the previews, recaps. Do you have a tornado warning for us, Tony?
Well, you know, we are coming up to the end of February. And, you know, I was telling you guys last week I took a little bit of a beating on Google AI, and I let myself get beat up. And I was like, well, fight days, you know, sometimes soak in the punishment and then make the Rocky comeback, right?
Right.
So it actually has helped me because I'm reaching out. I'm talking to people now. I'm trying to be like just a normal guy. But Clearwater is coming up in 15 days. And actually 14 days and about 9 hours I'll be on the plane because I got an early morning flight. And I am so ready to be that guy again. A couple years ago, I was not sure. I wasn't sure anymore. And Tom, I'll give you a reference on this, and you may have heard this before. You guys know me. I am full tilt in everything I do. I am pedal to the metal. You know, from the moment I wake up, my engine starts revving. And then sometimes I let myself get a little too ahead of myself. And that's not always good. But for me, it's me. It's what makes me me. And a couple years ago, I went through a stretch of about 4 months where I really beat myself bad. And it was in 2022 into 2023. And Phillies had made an improbable playoff run that year. And they got into the playoffs on the last day. And next thing you know, they're in the World Series and they're up 2-1. And I got so emotionally invested in it because for years when the team sucked so bad, I started doing my persona after their glory days of 08, 09 and that time frame. And they were pretty shitty during that time. And people would mock me. They'd call me Apollo Creetard and a bunch of names. And I wanted to be at that parade, and I wanted to say, I beat you all. I outlasted you. And unfortunately, they didn't win. They succumbed. They lost. They were up 2-1. They lost 4-2. Go right into the Eagles run. They go up against Kansas City for the first time, and they lose on a penalty. And it was emotional. And I was so physically spent, and more, I was mentally spent. And I remember what Dr. Cox said to me. He said this to the whole team back in 1996, 30 years ago. He said, one of my teammates said, you know, I feel burned out. And Dr. Cox says, don't ever say that. In my gym, he goes, don't you ever say that. He goes, you may be fatigued. I understand that. But if you're burnt out, it means the sacrifice is no longer worth the reward. And you're done. You won't be done. You won't ever do this again. But take a little bit of time off, relax, rest up, recharge, and come back. You're not burnt out. You're fatigued. And when I went down to Florida that year, I wasn't sure if I was burnt out or if I was fatigued. I didn't know. And I got down there, packed up all my shit like I normally do. Now I change my game plan a little bit. I fly in so early on a game day that I literally don't have time to think. I get to the airport, I get to my hotel, I suit up and I go. I don't think. Turn the brain off. Back then, I had a whole night to think about it. I had some drinks in me, and I went back to my hotel, got up in the morning, I worked out. I felt like I was in the dressing room, and I wasn't ready. And I said, Tony, you got to go. You got to do it. And I said, I don't know if I can. And the guy in the mirror said, I don't know if you can. And the guy in the mirror said, suit up piece by piece. And it reminded me of an old fight that I had back in 97. I had lost to a guy from Air Force. Not the 6'7" guy, Rich. This guy was only about 6'2". But I lost to a guy from Air Force up in New York. And it was a fight that I knew I won. Dr. Cox knew I won. The crowd knew I won. 2 of the 3 judges did not know that I won. And I was pretty bummed about it. I was pretty pissed off. And I got to took the rest of the semester off because we only had one more show and I wasn't on it. And went back to Philly, started training in Philly. And I was working hard, but I knew that next fight was coming up, and I didn't know if I was ready. And I got there that night. I was fighting a guy named Chad Gary. I just posted the video on Facebook a few weeks ago. Fighting this guy, Chad Gary. He was pretty good. He was brigade champion. And I remember walking out to that ring, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready for this. And Chad Gary's like, oh, fuck you, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And Chad Gary punched me in the mouth, and I said, all right, now I'm ready. Now let's dance. And it was just like there. I put that outfit on, and I was like, I feel like a fraud. I don't know if I'm ready. And I walked down that long corridor, and I got off the elevator, and the whole crowd in the lobby saw me, and they erupted. And I said, oh, shit, I remember that feeling. It's a good feeling. First guy runs over. He's like, photo op? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And I threw the thumbs up, and I was like, let's go. I'm ready. I'm back. So my tornado warning tonight is a message. It was a little bit of a long-winded message, I know, but it's a message that in life, they always say in Rocky Balboa, it's not how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep going forward. I understand that. But in life, there are times when you are going to feel tired. You are going to feel worn out. You are going to feel like giving up. You are going to feel like you don't have it no more. When you reach down deep inside you and there's nothing left, there still is. There's that little bit of left in you, because if there wasn't, you wouldn't reach down. So, yeah, exactly. So the tornado warning tonight is to never give up on yourself. And sometimes, maybe you need that punch in the mouth. I mean, I'll be happy to give you one. I really will. Anybody. Somebody walks in and says, hey, punch me in the mouth. Oh, please let me, may I? So that's what I got to say tonight. Believe in yourself. Tornado says, when you're feeling down, you're feeling fatigued, you're feeling tired, reach down deep inside. And when you feel you got nothing, reach down even deeper.
Last week after you talked about the AI thing, I saw a clip, AI generated clip of Rocky versus Rambo. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Figure out how to make a video and put Tony in it against Rocky. That would scare him up.
I still got to get that photo with him.
Yeah. Get your own Rocky movie made.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. I'm gonna do a couple bad dad jokes, and then we're gonna Tom do his psychic vision of the week. I've got one for each of you guys. Tony, you're in insurance, right?
Yes.
So I got an insurance themed one for you.
Okay.
Did you hear about all the insurance companies reaching out to campers?
I have not.
So they're letting them know that if their tent blows away in the middle of the night, they will not be covered. And I got a psychic one for Tom.
Yes, sir.
What kind of pants do psychics wear?
I give up.
A paranormal pants. So, speaking of psychics, what do we got for our psychic vision?
Well, we got just a little bit of some boxing history about a man that I was always fascinated by, and he had a couple different dimensions. and I'm talking about George Foreman. Now, you guys didn't. Let's see. When he was coming back, you remember, I'm sure, his second approach, even though you guys were pretty young then. But the
Somewhere
first one,
on VHS, I have his fight with Jerry Cooney. That was the
Oh,
first
yeah.
fight I
Mhm.
watched in his comeback.
Yeah. Well, the first time around, I mean, he was terrified. I mean, he just had strength, power, and he was just like a machine. And especially after what he did to Joe Frazier. But there was, even back in those days, there was another side to him, and he was not popular then, but he always had kind of a dirty streak. And it was very subtle that some people would notice it. And I was doing a little bit of research on this, and I remember sometimes that in some of his fights, like in the Jimmy Young fight, that was the last fight of his first incarnation. He was trying to get pretty rough there. You know, he had Jimmy in a clinch, tried to break his arm, but Foreman had a kind of a subtle dirtiness about it. Now, take a guy like Chuck Wepner. There was nothing subtle about Chuck Wepner's dirtiness. That he was about as subtle as as a bull in a china closet. I mean, just blatant rabbit punches. I mean, he didn't care who was watching or anything like that. But Foreman had a way of like he would be in a clinch and he was so strong, he could kind of spin the opponent. And a lot of times he would come in with a kidney shot. Now those are illegal um, because they can do a hell of a lot of damage. And these kidney shots were really popular back in the old days. And there was a book that uh, came out in 1889, and R.G. Allen's Boxing. And it's got a lot of this old stuff. And I found the book, and we'll be getting a review of that when I have time to read it this spring. But with these kidney punches, I remember Foreman did that when he fought Dwight Muhammad Quali. If you guys remember that fight, how he would spin him around, and somehow he got away with this because I remember it seems like he was never called on it. And when he fought Holyfield, um, Evander had a couple quotes here that I found out about this because it seems like Foreman would throw just a lot of different angles, and he had that cross arm defense, kind of a combination of the Philly shell and then some of the Archie Moore stuff. So as a consequence, his punches could come at all kinds of angles, and like as far as like what Evander was saying that. How did he word it here? He says, that right hand, get ready to hammer. He don't care where he hit you with this. He just come like this. And like Evander was saying how strong George was, that he would just push him back. And like he says, what did he hit me with? I said, he'll hit you with a looping right. And a looping right means you don't see it because he threw it wide, then it came down. He says, I feel he got away with it. It's hard to prove. And he said he was able to push me off with those big old arms and mow me. He kind of mowed me into a corner. I couldn't even get out. He was so much stronger. But that led to some forearms and elbows. And Foreman, it's just he really seemed to have that down. And I remember in the 1975 where he fought those five guys in that afternoon. And you guys have probably watched that on YouTube, or have you? I mean, have you guys seen that?
What, the Foreman fights?
The one where he fought the five guys in Toronto.
I saw like clips of that on YouTube. I remember my dad talking about it a lot.
Yeah, and it turned out I got to be friends with one of the guys he fought, Terry Daniels. But even there, he was doing some rough stuff. And I remember Ollie was beside the ring and yelling up at him, he fights dirty. He fights dirty. I'll straighten it out. I mean, he was into Foreman's head back then. But anyways, to get back to this, this book that I'll be reviewing, it really covers a lot of the dark sides of this, and I think Foreman studied that a lot. because he'd even come in sometimes with some like hammer fist. Well, in boxing, that's illegal. I mean, you've got to have the glove straight. You can't bend your arm and come in with the bottom of your fist. But looking back, he was able to get away with some of that stuff. And I was just wondering out loud to myself that in his second incarnation, he was the lovable teddy bear, always smiling, and talking about how fat he was and stuff. But he still was using some of those foul tactics even then, the second time around, and he just seemed to be one of those guys that could get away with it. So I guess the whole research is, who knows if he was really malicious about it, if he was doing it on purpose, or if that was just his style. But he never apologized for it, and he never really, never even acknowledged it. But next time you watch any of his films, check some of that stuff out. So that is both sides of George Foreman. We've seen the good guy, then we see the dark side. We've seen the mean guy in the first time around, and then the nice, mellow guy. But they had a common thread, what I just covered. So there we have it. A little bit of boxing history.
Awesome. Yep, George, rest in peace, Foreman. I'll always remember that was the first time I'd ever seen a fighter use that Archie Moore defense, where he put his elbows up. Only the top of his head, the baldness there was showing.
Yeah, and you could see how he would do that forearm, and that's, I don't know if it's really super illegal, but it's just kind of a rough, dirty thing. Try to put that forearm in the chin or throat or something, and he was good at it.
Yeah, I was lucky in my little short boxing career. I only had one guy who liked to foul. Tony knows who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
Penn State.
Oh, yeah. The guy with 17 arms that loved to clinch with every one of them.
Yeah, I almost got into a brawl with him down in Kentucky once. I don't even know what the hell we were doing in Kentucky, but there was all kinds of different schools involved in this fight card. Jesse Bond was there. That's when I fought him. One of only 2 losses I had, because I got so frustrated with his fouling. Kept elbowing.
He was tough to fight.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my tornado warning. Don't let somebody who fouls you get you so upset you lose the fight. All right, till next week. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Let's enjoy the fights.
All right, gents.
Have a good weekend.
Mm-hmm.